Good evening. I guess uploading. Okay, do I start? Yeah. I um my name uh, maybe like last week, and maybe there was a query we wanted to execute, and it was like this that doing it. Tooks was like, well, we need to come up because for front end for web team to um and so for and I'm still looking for one actually. So since before the acquisition, where there was already news of acquisition going on, so people knew. And the guy that created MySQL, I've forgotten his name. My is actually the name of his daughter. So when he was going to start another one, it only makes sense for him to use another name of his daughter. So a guy just used Maria DB. So there's SQL Server, popularly called MSSQL, and then there's Postgre. Postgre is another popular one, but it's gaining ground right now. So views, straight to the point. So views are simple or complex queries stored in database. The reason we use views is basically, let's say you want to fetch. Basically, just like the name implies, it's for viewing. It's just to access what's there. View basically helps you to collate. The best use case of a view is you're collecting data from multiple tables, and you don't want to disturb people that would interact with database. Say, for instance, I would use a lot of in-house projects. Say any of the insurance projects, you want to view proposal details, you want to view so many details from multiple tables, and the person just has a little bit of knowledge of SQL, and you don't want the person to be disturbed about what the relationship between those tables are. You just create a view that fetches all what the person wants into a table, that into a view. Actually, it's like a table, but it's just a view. It in itself, it does not have data, so it just helps with that. So basically, another thing it helps with is if you want to grant restrict permissions. Say for instance, you're working with, I will use insurance projects. The client wants access to database, but we don't want them to be able to access the database without permission.
Well, okay, so I think we're going back in. So if you want, you can just like slide to the
Thank
next.
you. So we have, let me, I'll speak under database. I would probably say, okay, sorry, let me change this to age and say age is, all right. I want to add under database. I would say users. Okay. So let me just quickly fill in. Okay. So this is, okay. So this kind of shows basic, just a basic database, no relationships, just to keep things pretty simple. All right. So just to be sure we have something, select all from random. Sorry. So this is just something to show we have record. Okay. Okay. So essentially, what I've done is just a query to show me what jokes can be made by what user. Now, ideally, for you to write this query, you need to know the relationship. I need to know the relationship between all the tables. So just to convert this into a view, we do, So let me not bother myself about the name. So I want to run this query to see. Okay, cool. All right. So you can see that the new table-like structure that shows user jokes. But if I open it, all I get is the name of the person and the joke person. So this kind of like restricted access. If I don't want, if you're not granted access to random or users, a view gives, it still gives them the same view, so to say. I'm not trying to. Now, I can, if I want to filter, I can do select all from user jokes, where name is equal to. Sorry, let me check the content again. Okay. Ada. So Ada's open joke. Something felt. So that kind of display picture, I can filter on review, but you still, the person does not have access to the underlying table. You can insert into a view depending on some conditions. But this is a beginner course. For that, you pay. All right, so let's get on. So that's for views. Okay, we've created the view, executed. Okay, do we update the view to include another color? Okay, I think we can do that. So let's say now we want to know the age of the person who is viewing our, or the user's age. So I can do users dot age. Okay, so underneath, and show that. So then if we don't want it, we can drop it or we can rename it. So you can review. So essentially, a safe way to create, because if it's existent, it wipes it off. If it's not existent, it will create it. Or if you are sure it exists, you just want to replace, you use alter. So all I did here was alter the table. Let me. So this was the initial definition of the view. This was the initial definition of the view. But we now wanted it to include, initial definition, the age of the person was not included. The age of the person was not included, but we altered it to include the age, which was what we did. So let me take it back to where it is right. Okay, so that's for view. We can keep it or we should drop it. All right, let's go. Let's talk about triggers. Triggers are, let's say, a collection of queries that can be executed depending on the change that happens on the table. Views that they are defined on the DB level. Triggers are defined on a table. So we can use a trigger for either when you're inserting or when you're updating. So it's either before or after. Say you want something to happen before you insert or before you update. Yes. So it basically helps you to trigger things. Take for instance, when someone's detail is updated, you want to copy the old value to a new database, to a new table, and you want it to happen in the at DB level. So you create a trigger on insert for such on such a table. So for every insertion, do this. So take for instance, you want to do balance sheet. Every time you withdraw your money, after withdrawing the money, that's you insert a transaction or you insert a withdrawal. It reduces your balance. And then you can actually use triggers for constraints. Say, for instance, you're trying to go beyond a certain limit, or you're trying to execute a query that would cause integrity violation. You can use a trigger to throw an exception. Basically, throw an exception and nothing would happen. So to create a trigger is basically create trigger, the trigger name, when do you want it to be done, is it an update, you specify the table name and you specify for each row, which basically means for every row I'm inserting or every row I'm deleting, do this. Then you now put the action you want it to do here.
Sorry, is this sort of like event-based
database? Yes, for SQL. So this is like a prevention is better than cure, a case where you can use it for constraints. So you say first line is basically we are switching the delimiter because SQL has the default delimiter is a semicolon. But if you're writing a trigger, you most likely need more than one statement. So take for instance, we have multiple semicolons here. On a normal day, it will start, if I didn't specify this delimiter, it will start from here, go all the way. Once it gets to this, it will try to execute it, but that doesn't make sense. So it would fail. Which is why we do this. We change the default delimiter and we do what we want to do. We are creating a trigger before insertion on this table. So for every row we check, we add a condition. So take for instance, you're trying to insert, we check if your old balance, if the amount you want to withdraw is greater than, so we can do another SQL statement there. If the amount you want to withdraw is greater than your balance, if this condition fails, it does this. Basically, we are throwing a message. This throws an error, and this sets the message. And then we end our if, we end the trigger, and we change the delimiter back to what it was. Then we can drop a trigger. Okay, so let's get cooking. So who should we limit now? Should we limit Ada from updating our age from 16 or from 14? Thank you. Okay, so one more thing we can do. Let's this table, we won't specify their date of birth. So I'll probably need your help with calculation of date of birth. DOB. Well, let's just make it the year. Anyone works fine actually. Let's do date time. It allows now by default. So for 20, that would be 1999 07. Man, I should have done. Yes. Wow. I really are young though. 1921.
You're not 1992.
1921. Ada is 2005. Pretty young. Now, what we're trying to do right now, we want to limit, we'll do a case of updates, where what we would achieve is when you update your date of birth, your age should be automatically. So take for instance, let's assume Ada falsified a page of the document. And we discovered now that actually Ada is not 14, Ada is actually 4. we want to, or let's say Ada came to be 14 so she could play in the under 14 women World Cup. But we later discovered that Ada is actually. So we update that. Now we can put our condition here will be before insert, before update, because now our record already exists. Or we can do either before insert, depending on how we want to do, but we can do before insert. That's so that whatever age or whatever date of birth you are specifying, not greater than today. You can't say you were born yesterday, you were born tomorrow. It doesn't make sense. So so create trigger. EFCC. So what we want to do is now when you're dealing with triggers, or anytime you're doing an insert or an update, MySQL technically creates two tables, but they don't exist. New and old. For an insert, all you have is just new. For an update, you have new and old. New is the value you're trying to put in. Old is the value that was there before. So if in this case we are saying if we're doing for insert, right, or do it for update? For update. So before update on users table for each row, if new dot dob now, no, it is greater than now. That means what you're claiming is greater than the current time. Then you could give us that and
I think the message should be this zero go through iPhone to iPhone.
okay. All right.
Okay,
So so all right. So what we are trying to do here is we're trying to create a trigger on the users table such that every time you want to update the user's date of birth, it should check if the person is claiming to be a time traveler. So this information. Okay, cool. So now we have our trigger. If you want to see, I think that this kind of triggers. So you can see the triggers from this view. Okay, so users right. So Ada's date of birth is something that if you want to do the query, let's say you want to update users. Set DOB to be equal to 2019. Today is 1st of November, right? So we can do 1102. Thank you. Where name equals Ada. Ada, thanks for providing us with. So we still get an error. So that's one way to prevent that from or an update. We can do similar thing for insert. So take for instance, if you want to do let me see, did we make this? Is the users table? Is it? I want to check the structure. Okay, it allows no. Cool. So let's create one for insert. So I want to create age calculator before insert, or this will be after insert. So every time, what I'm trying to do right now is I want the database to calculate the age for us. So more or less, it's you want a situation where you are taking some work off your developer or off person that is inserting into database. You want it to happen, just specify your date of birth, and then now I will do the crude one, which is just get the year and just subtract the current year from that. That's all I will do. So here we go. So create trigger each calculator for each will begin if. Okay, so I'm not doing any check right now. All I want to do is update set age to be equal to that'll be year of now minus year of new dot. What I'm doing okay. So I can update.
What do you do now? I don't have many.
Okay, so let's run. I'll go through this transactions. So basic transactions, so MySQL to ensure that data doesn't go haywire. Basically, it helps us to ensure that a unit of work is completely done. So, say for instance, in the case of money transaction, yes, I think that's a very good one. You're transferring money between two accounts. I would use same bank right now. Say you're transferring money from in GT Bank between my account, from my account to your account. Now, what we typically would do is, first of all, deduct from mine, add to yours. We deduct from mine, that's one statement. Then another statement is to add to yours. Now, but if in the process of inserting to your account, my SQL server goes away, that simply means that someone has been debited and someone has not been credited, which is so there are four parameters or four attributes of a transaction. Atomicity means it is called ACID. That's the acronym. ACID atomicity means if it happens, it actually happens. All changes happen. Sorry, atomicity means the change that you did is actually affected. Consistency means it always happens. It is always so. Take for instance, when you transfer money, it should always either go from me to your own account, or it should just still take my account. Isolation means every transaction should be independent. Take for instance, I want to transfer money from my account to your account. It shouldn't go from and I have another transfer from my account to Eri's account. It shouldn't mix up. That which is the case. You enjoy isolation most when you have this automated splitting. I'm sure that, well, I believe this is what a good number of fintech startups use when they say when money comes in, we split it across all accounts. So once it comes in, if it starts splitting the money into different accounts. And durability means if the system fails, like your change is persistent, it means after sending the money to your account and we restart the system, the money doesn't magically show back in my own account. So major, then let me use this to say you can only use transaction when you're inserting, deleting, or updating. You can't use it when you're creating a table. A bit of Eri asked me a question about save up and save down yesterday. So save up basically does this for you underground. It begins a transaction and it does what you're doing, and you end it after your save up. It begins a transaction, run your save up, and it commits a transaction. And the save down does the same thing. It begins the transaction, executes your query, and commits it. So begin a transaction specifies the start of a transaction. Save point is like just like the name implies, it's a save point. Say you're doing three things. I want to transfer money to three people, and it's not a case of if one fails, everything fails. I want it to be one can pass. So use a save point for that kind of scenario. You save, you do it, you execute a statement, you save, you do execute another one, you can save. Now, if you do roll back, it will roll back up to a certain point. So if now the beauty of save points is if you specify a name, I can go all the way back to a particular save point. So if I wanted to roll back to, say, send A, send B, send C at the save points I have, if I want to go back all the way to the first one, I can do roll back to, but I'll put the save point name. Then, so let's see this at work. One way to sorry, let me check this. What's this? Updates DOB is greater than now. That is by statement. This. Sorry, let me check the triggers here. Sorry. Okay, so I'm trying to get this guy to work. Great. Can't update use of stabilizers and stock because it is already used by statement. So I'm trying to check if these guys are not conflicting.
Okay.
If new DOB is DOB is greater than now. It is not touching it. So let me drop the first.
It was a court.
Okay, now this is update user set. You have to be important. I'm not using it now. Sorry. Hold on, let me check something. I need to be sure I have. Okay, so it is not that. Update user set this to be this. Update. Because this should work. Wait, after insert. After inserting, I'm trying to update. There's not. I know. What I'm to do is update. Update. Users. Set. I'm going after. I'm going now. Sorry. This I need to specify I because it is already used by a statement which invoked this function or trigger. I'm not sure if this is. Sorry, I should use at. It's not working. No, it did not work. Did not set it. Did not set it. Update. Um, I want to do is update users. I cannot update. Let me add this. Already used by statement which invoked this function or trigger. Since I cannot update the users and trigger this by statement using this function. I'll get back to that. Oh. Sorry, I want to check something. Hmm. Calculates, but it's not. No, it's there's a new table. So I created a new table for the session. Maybe I'll get back to that. save transactions, right? Okay, so let's say we want to do begin transaction, insert into this. Let me just copy this. Insert into users. Please, I need a name. No, we have
Lalana. Baripo. Baripo. What are you saying? Chola, nice.
So
Popular, Moko. Yeah,
so one thing insert into users commit. So set auto commit to 0. So setting auto commit to 0 means if I do anything, it won't until I do a commit. By default, well, don't say by default. On a normal day, or by default, a database is set to auto commit. Any insert, delete, update. But if we put it if we set the auto commit to be equal to 0, that means until you say it should commit, it won't happen. So say I'm trying to insert this user into the database now. Let me hold on to my commit for now. So if I do this, yeah, my next question is check the manual. So we begin transaction. I want to delete this guy. Query. Begin transaction. No. No, that's not the issue. Yeah. I've changed it back to the semicolon. Sorry. should work. Stop. It's not begin transaction, my friend. Begin transaction. Oh, that is weird. It's not start. Sorry. Begin transaction. It's begin transaction, not start. Oh no, it's start transaction. It's start transaction, sorry. So now we should have Timmy in as a user, right? So if we set auto commit to be off, and I don't want to row. I want to say for someone. So if I do this, it's not yet in. I started the record, but it's not yet in. If I do this, so we have Bolade in. Then if I do Boboye right, and I do roll back, so execute. It was never there. So, but you can only do rollback for insert, updates, and delete. You can use it for creating table. Although there's a question I'm yet to get to, which is, can we roll back something that was triggered by before insert trigger? Before insert trigger. Yeah. So stored procedures. Stored procedures is more like where you begin to do programming when you are dealing with database. You can implement some business logic, you accept parameters, and you can set variables. That is the idea. Don't know if that's the idea. That is where you typically should use stored procedures. Like you have something you want to do. Say you are swapping. You want to do a lot of swapping, or you want to delete. You want to do a forceful delete, and you want it to go through. You want some logic to come into place. Say you want something like you want to grade users, and you don't want to always write the query. Say if a user has 1,000 proposals, is a consistent user. If it's just 10 upcoming user, that kind of, you can use a stored procedure in the sense that it accepts parameters and it can set variables. So say for instance, this is how it's created. So you specify create procedure, the procedure name. SP is always assumed to be the default. Well, people use SP so that they can readily identify its stored procedure, and then you can specify the parameters. To specify parameters for stored procedure, you specify the parameter name and the data type, and then you begin and end the stored procedure. Now, because of the nature of stored procedures, you might have to do it might involve a lot of queries. So most times you change the delimiter, just like we did here. You can specify change the delimiter before you define your stored procedure, and then once you're out of it, you define alternate, you switch back to the default delimiter. So take for instance, okay, this is what I was trying to. You can specify a delimiter at the beginning, and then you go all the way through till it gets there. So what this guy does is he checks, he creates a stored procedure to check. There should be in here. It's an input. There are three types of parameters. You have input, output, in, out, and in out. In means it goes one way. Out, which is inside. You can't changing it does not do anything. Out, you can only set it. That means you can change the value. Then in out means you can, if you set the value, if I try to execute a query outside, it would still work. So let me just create something similar to this. No, it just helps. So let's say what we are creating here is the third procedure that so I want to select, hold on, select each from users where equals username. Then what else I want to do? I want to do some check if age is less than 10. Set group to be equal to Let's go to the teenager. So let me just add one to. Sorry, I'm sure. Create procedure. Create procedure with the procedure. Sorry, I wanted the in. Network from user where how was the empty? Oh, group is a keyword. So group is a keyword. So if I have now to execute a stored procedure, just call the procedure and specify your input and your output. So call age grouper. Um, mm, missing something. Input, output. No. No. not available when you before trigger. How procedure. How procedure this. So, no. Not to specify trigger. Let me see. Is it called procedure? It's called procedure. It's an SQL. It's not so I'm asking her that.
So you're not highlighting the, did you highlight the code and everything?
Yeah, I did. I'm saying that there's a problem between click this and if and more. It's already approved. Oh, shoot. Oh, specify. Sorry. Yeah, call procedure this has name other. Here then the procedure name. Call. And that's what oh,
When I call procedure, I think you're right. You just
I don't know this here.
yeah, I think you know what they're doing.
So after calling a stored procedure, you can use the output. Thanks. So we can use the output This one we don't have Ada. Sorry again. If greater than less than 10, if it's greater than 10, but less than this, we get this. If age is greater than 20, sorry, let me. So essentially, it's giving me the. Oh, that's not what I want. I want the head of the person. What is returning is the head. I don't want it to return the head. If I call this is returning the head of the person, which is a use case for, but that's not what we're trying to achieve here. You said something. The use case is to select, which is returning here. I want to return age, teenager, or patient. Sorry, let me check one thing. No. Sorry. So what I'm trying to achieve is it should set these groups, and I would have to select it. Let me double check. No. something else. But the point. No, this was it won't capture it. Trying to safeguard because all is returning this guy, which is not what I want.
So I think it's stopping the execution at this place now. Abi?
Yes.
Why is that?
Stopping it. Sorry, I want to confirm. So I'm even trying to see if I can select it to a temporary variable, just so that I can use it. The mistake I'm making is either with the selection. it's stopping here. It's stopping after this selection. And I want to still proceed further. Anybody can. My concern is maybe is if I'm mixing SQL Server and MS and MySQL together. SQL, SQL. But the only, let me check. I have my pages. Okay. My sorry, I want to try using the video. Don't you guys have user HP? Okay. Sorry. So the mistake I made was I was using should be user age. Should be user age. So the challenge was I was trying to use this without putting it in the temporary. You get it? So it was always null, and because it was null, all of these guys did not execute, which profile was given null. So the concept is I'm using this username to fetch a user, and based on so I'm using the username to get the person, and I'm setting these groups to be equal to whatever each any of this equals to. And so I'm calling the spot procedure here and specifying groups as whatever the result of this operation is. I just chose groups, I can use anything. Right? Because it's a variable. It's a variable. So I can, if I use at this is a variable here. So I've set. So what I'm saying is, after executing this thing, set this class to be equal to whatever value. So you still have to select. I still have to select the class here. So what people often use it for is graph business logic. That's when stored procedures are used.
Why is it turning on
Out. It's an output parameter.
why is it turning on teenager? Like, okay, at that, okay, so the third person.
So if you want for some,
Multiple.
for multiple people, you start using cursors. So the cursor in SQL is like result set and control. So you can drop it.
Yeah, I think that is how we know. So during the transactions, save points.
Not a DDL.
The save point is like is saving at that point, right? It's saving
Everything up to that
up
point.
to that point.
Yes.
So it can be dynamic. It can like the name of can be dynamic.
Yes, to the name. So I can say save all to batch one, batch save point batch one, save point batch two.
Can you can it be dynamically the name can it be dynamically generated?
Well, I've not tried that. I think if you really want to see that, you would use the stored procedure.
Okay.
If you really want to see transaction at its best. For transaction and for the transactions variable, you will see the effects best when you're doing the stored procedure, because at that point you are really doing multiple when you need to when you need to check conditions before going on. Say for instance, you want to insert, someone wants to pay a certain amount of money, you do a check, okay, or you even allowed it to insert. You insert it, maybe VAT or something. After the insertion, you try to perform an type of operation. If it doesn't meet the condition, you roll back, but you save the insertion into the database. So there are so many. It depends on your combination. The first time I used stored procedure was for a project, and the person needed to be able to switch down lines. So you have downline A and downline B. It's an MLM thing. So if you're able to switch downlines, and if you're switching downlines, if you're switching your offline, everybody under you should switch, and we should recalculate how much it's due to you. So that was the first time I used stored procedure. That's when you begin to see the effect of save points and
So one question. Can you roll back to like any save point? So if you've done 5,
arrow back.
you can roll. So that means everything after that save point is gone.
I think it's
So you saved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
save point.
Yeah. Now roll back to it. No, sorry.
For me, everything saves.
So you can roll back a sealed save point.
You can roll back to save point.
So that's what I'm saying. You do save point 1 commit, save point 2 commit. Then you now roll back to save point 1. Is that possible?
What I've done before is save point A, save point B, go back to
Without committing. So once you commit, you can't say you can roll back.
But I know that transaction, they tried transaction in transaction.
It's
the more the dynamic use, the more we will need. Okay, the more you stress. So take for instance, one of the challenges, what kind of enforcement taking this is there are some other things that we have not even read. But what informs my sense take is here we don't really take we don't maximize our GDP. We don't maximize our DD power. There are some things that are best left to the DD. Yeah. But because of